primer panel del día. Vamos a tener una conversación muy interesante. ¿Todos me entienden si hablo español? Sí, ¿verdad? Ok. Bueno. Okay, so now we're going to have a conversation with Latinas who have received, listen to this, $1 million in investments for their tech startups. The moderator for this panel is one of our Latinas in Tech founding members. She runs ecosystem relations at the Venture City. This is a VC fund and tech accelerator. Now, prior to this, she was a Silicon Valley correspondent for El País, where she's still a contributor covering technology, business, and cultural
She's right on stage right
now, on a personal note, she's also the founder of Silicio.soy, diagonal Silicio, por si lo quieren anotar y alguien quiere entrar ahí, se los voy a repetir, Silicio.soy, diagonal Silicio. It's an online site dedicated to sharing news about Latinos making an impact in the startup world. So now we're thrilled to welcome to the stage our Rosa Jimenez Cano. She's Ecosystem Relations at the Venture City. Bienvenida.
Thank you, gracias. I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to say it. I'm going to do English. Since I moved to Miami a year and a half ago, I got that my English is getting worse. So Miami, and also every time I come here, I realize that I still miss the Bay Area. So let's make it easy. One of the feelings I have is that Silicon Valley's mindset, and it is something that's becoming a method, and it's going far from where we are. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to one of our representatives in the Miami chapter, Maxine Dutchman. She's the founder and CEO of Caribou, and she's one of those that comes and goes to the Bay Area. So welcome, Max. Nice to have you here. And we have Tania Menendez, co-founder and CEO of Snowball Wealth. She's a natural Bay Area born Latina, which is a rare breed, and we are not used to that. I'm going to the Cono Sur. We have Agustina Sartori, a person I admire, and I can call her a friend. More than raising money, she has also sold her company, which is like chapeau. And finally, we have a Brazilian representative, also Latina. It's a big debate, are we or are not? She's Carolina Reis Oliveira, CEO of One Skin Technologies. It's fun to have two companies related to skin, beauty, wellness, wealth, and kids. So there's kind of a good side here. And first of all, I want to show my respect to all these CEOs and founders, because it's not easy to be a founder, but it's even more difficult being a woman and raising money, which is the top idea of our panel. So first of all, I would like to ask Maxime and to tell her and to tell all the group that she has Caribou, which she's going to tell what Caribou does, but she wanted to raise 1 million, and that's the topic of the panel, but you finally got to raise $3 million. So I would like to know, how did you all do it to raise your first $1 million? And how difficult it was? How is raising money being a woman? Do you think there are certain barriers? And how did you defeat those fears and get to make it like happen?
Our company. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you all know it's hard, super hard. And
I saw Rocío raising her hand and raising money.
Yeah. It's really hard, and especially as a woman, as a Latina, and I'm like an undercover Latina. If you look at my name, you're like, what is she doing on this panel? I'm a Cuban. So I have to out myself and tell people that I'm a feisty Latina, and they're gonna have to deal with my Latina-ness when they become my investor. But even with the white privilege that I have, it was still really hard, and especially as a woman, I was put in a lot of situations that were unsafe. And that's why it makes it a little bit harder as women to go and raise money, because sometimes we get offers for money, but we have to turn it down. And I started to see this and I said, screw this, I'm a Latina, I'm super resourceful, I'm relentless. And so I came up with my own way to raise money. And the first $100,000 that we kind of raised, I won. So I noticed that investors weren't really like kind of giving me the time of day. And so I was like, fine. So I went and I won or was a finalist in over 30 pitch competitions. And I just like went around the country. It was so funny. I like actually came to a San Francisco pitch competition and it was like, I'm from the Bay Area, I'm from Oakland, I'm from Palo Alto. And I was like, hi, I'm from Miami. And I won the pitch competition. Yeah. And that's one way to fund your business. We did end up going for an institutional round and we raised $1.3 million that way through this year. I had to raise over the summer, and again, when you try and raise money over the summer, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're a white man with a hoodie, like it's hard. Because the summer everyone's like on the beach and on vacation, they're not paying attention to you. So I decided to do equity crowdfunding, and I highly, highly recommend it for anyone in the audience who's having trouble raising money. Equity crowdfunding was amazing for us. We raised $1.7 million, and I'm the first Latina to raise $1 million, actually Latino or Latina to raise $1 million for equity crowdfunding. And the most exciting thing is that I didn't get sexually harassed once this summer while I was raising money. So I highly, highly, especially for the women in the room, I recommend looking at equity crowdfunding.
So what about you?
Yeah, so this is my second tech company. For my first tech company, it was definitely a journey. And this was 10 years ago before there were as many resources as there were. Luckily, I didn't know, I was so naive at the time that I thought that it was normal for it to be this hard. And so my whole life has been hard. And so I was just like, okay, I know that it takes generally, 50 plus conversations. And so for me, I just thought it was normal that it was that hard. But then, looking back, I definitely faced a lot of trauma. And, I think that besides being hit on, I think that the other piece that I think is challenging as a Latina is just the microaggressions and being constantly questioned for your credibility, and then having that feeling that you can't put your finger on it, but there's some gender bias and just in general bias on the way that you look. But to give you some more tactical advice, I think that I went through an accelerator in Brooklyn, and that's what really helped me raise the initial $1 million. And so I really believe in these accelerator models and incubator models. We went through one that it was the first and only batch that they had, but it was it was really. We also tried, like you said, you have to be relentless to be an entrepreneur. We also took introductions from friends of friends, and so I think that just constantly putting yourself out there and giving yourself the opportunity to have those serendipitous moments where eventually, for us, one of our first checks was Alexis Ohanian, and we met him because my co-founder met his chief of staff randomly at some event, and he cold emailed her afterwards, and then we got coffee, and he was our first check-in, and so it was really serendipitous. This time around, our first check was a mentor of mine who, I've known her for years, and I had no idea she wanted to invest, and then we had brunch one day, and I was telling her what we were doing, and she was like, oh, I want to invest. And so I think that just really putting yourself out there and telling your story over and over again, and give me the advice that men aren't as socialized, or men are socialized more for rejection. So if you think about it, men are the ones asking you out, they're constantly getting rejected, and facing rejection gracefully is a real skill that you have to develop as an entrepreneur. And so putting yourself in more situations in which you get rejected more often and just letting that roll off is really important.
Agustina, your turn.
I think for me, I started Glam Street over 7 years ago, and then Ulta Beauty acquired my company last year in October. In that time, we bootstrapped the company a lot at the beginning, and then we raised around $2 million here in the US. And what I thought was very challenging in the case of in our space, and we were building augmented reality for the beauty space, was that it was not only that like we had to raise money, which is one of the hardest things that I think as a startup you face, but that the space too was a space that the investors didn't relate to. So usually the most venture capitalists are all men, so how are you explaining to them a problem that has to do more with women than with men in a space that they don't relate in any way, right? They don't use makeup, they don't use cosmetics, so that was a huge challenge, right? To make them understand that actually there is a huge opportunity, the size of the market, why is this important, why is this a problem, why does augmented reality really help in the beauty space, right? So I had to make them feel like, hey, ask your wife, what does she think about this? Ask your daughter, and that helped me a lot for them to get the buy-in from different investors, because they didn't relate to the problem. And also what I realized is that the investors that funded my company also, they were not so much believing in the actual thing that we were building, but really on the vision and really on my vision and in the team, right? So it was more about, oh yes, this person, she has something. I don't quite understand what it is, but I actually believe her and I trust her, and I think she's just very driven and she's gonna make it. So I think in my case it was a lot about finding those people that believed in me and my team, than trying to convince them on the actual product that we were building, right? And I think the other thing also that is very important is that you need to find the right mentors in the way. I ran into an investor that was from Riverwood Capital's founding partner. He mentored me from day one. He invested in my company from day one, just because, again, she believed in more me and my team as people. And he is the typical VC here in Silicon Valley. So he opened a lot of doors for me. And I think when you feel different, or when you are different, or you come from somewhere else, it's important that you find someone that is local, that helps you bridge that gap that you may have. And when you go to a lot of meetings, as you've mentioned, right, I think it's important that you understand why is it that they're telling you no. I think many times you just go through the meetings and you're like, you go to a meeting, they tell you no, the next one no, and you don't get the time to sit down and say, hey, actually, why are they saying me no, right? And if you start actually making a big effort to understand that and even ask the right questions in the meetings, you actually realize that usually it's the same things that repeat themselves. So after you go to 10 meetings, you already realized exactly what is that is causing that friction. So you need to change, right? And how through those meetings, it's not about having 100 meetings, it's about having 10 meetings, learning, changing, pitching again, changing, learning, changing, and it's an iteration. If you just go and pitch the same thing all over again, probably they're seeing the same problems of why they're telling you no. So I think that's very important. It's not about having 100 meetings, it's about learning from each one of them and understanding the connection and why is it that they are all of them telling you no, and what do you need to change for them to tell you yes.
Yes, so in my experience, when I came here, the first challenge that I faced was I need to build my credibility. So usually when we come here from Latin America, we have no name, and usually we don't check those boxes that they love seeing, right? Drop out of Stanford, YC, an entrepreneur with a track record. So you arrive here who are you? Why I'm gonna invest in you instead of those much clearer and easier options that I have here. So you need to build your name, your credibility, and I think the best way is really showing progress over time and trying to build relationships here. So I've understood that it's very hard when you need to raise money. You go to talk to an investor and you need to let him or her sign a check right away. They don't know you, they don't know if they could trust you. So building this trust over time and showing that you are progressing, I think this makes much easier the process. And it's very interesting because fundraising is it's a painful process. It's a love and hate because I mean, it's so hard, but at the same time, you learn a lot with this process, you know, like with those no's, they are challenging you to get to the next step or to think about things that you were not thinking before, and it really like accelerates your business a lot. Like when we started last year, we were planning to go to Series A, and we thought that we were ready, and then the first meetings we saw that we need to reach much more milestones than we thought. So it's a very interesting, hard and painful, but a time that you learn a lot. So one of my advice is that never stop fundraising, you know, be out there all the time, like pitching, even if you don't need money right now, but you are gonna continuously learn what you need to reach for your next round, what are the metrics they want to see. But in terms of going back to how you build this credibility, like we were also part of an accelerator. We are a biotech company, so we got to InteBio. That's the main accelerator for biotech companies. So basically they help scientists to become entrepreneurs, and this is very helpful, not only because we know enough about entrepreneurship in academia, but also because they help you with these initial connections that really are super important for you to start, you know, even have the chance, the opportunity to talk to some VCs. So I really like this model of, you know, getting to an accelerator or building your own network. You find your mentors that's gonna kind of, you know, guide you along the way, because we basically don't know, like first-time entrepreneurs, we don't know like what I should do day one. We just like have our mission, our vision, and we want to execute it, but it's very hard to do by yourself. So find your right partners and mentors, and that's going to be very helpful.
Good. You've almost answered the next question, which is related to, do you think being a Latina, or especially a woman, is a barrier to raise money? And how did you get over that? Which would be your piece of advice for those who are here? And we've seen, I would say, 20% of our assistants have been into that. I've heard, Christina, some like stories of fake dreams and some kind of scary stories or things to, I don't know if you want to share it right now or not, but I think you were very smart in the way you handle all the, I'll say, frictions the Valley has with women in tech. So which would be your piece of advice, and how did you get to make it possible?
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge to be a woman, and then you have the other challenge that you're Latina and you're not from here, right? Which I like to separate them because I think they're different. I think the fact of the piece of being a woman, I really think that, I mean, at the beginning when I started the company, I think 7 years ago, I moved 5 years ago to San Francisco, the environment was different, right? So people were not talking about these things. Like, you went to meetings and like nobody was talking about the importance of having women in technology, women in entrepreneurship, right? So the environment was much more hostile than today, I feel. Now, I always like to look at it in a positive way. I feel like it's hard when we look at it as like victims, right? And it's good to look at it in a way that it's like, hey, maybe I'm the only woman in the room, and maybe that makes me special. And then, I mean, at the beginning, people are like, oh, what is she doing? In my case, many times they think like I studied marketing and I just started a company in beauty because I like beauty. And hey, no, I actually have a tech background. I'm an engineer. I started this company because I like to code, and I code the whole version of the software myself, the first version that we had. And it's like, when you think about those things and you say those things and you put yourself out there, it's like, they're like, oh really? Like, they are shocked, right? So when that happens, I think those are the moments that you have to use to show yourself and to show your value, right? So it's important that on the Latino side, I think like I did feel like it was harder to raise money, to convince clients for me as a Latina with all my team based in Uruguay than if probably I had gone to university here and I had all my team here. Definitely that is a barrier. But I think the question is more about like, why is it a barrier, right? And if you put yourself on the other side, right, and you say, okay, I'm an investor, I want to invest money, or I'm a brand and I want to use the software that Agustina's company is using, like, isn't it true that maybe it's safer and maybe it's easier to choose the people, as you said, right, that already know how things work, that know the market, that know that, so there are real frictions, right? The key for me was really identifying those frictions and understanding that, hey, actually, maybe like the investor has no idea where Uruguay is on the map, right? Everybody is in South America, and they're like, what do they do in Uruguay? Like, what? Like, they don't know, right? Well, educating people was a way that helped me, right? So I'm like, the first thing I say is like, do you know Uruguay is the country with like the highest exportation of software in Latin America? It's a reality. It's like in Uruguay, the software industry is the second biggest industry in the country. So talking about these things and saying them, they're like, really? Like they just could never imagine something like that, right? So I think it's important to understand that probably what was happening was, I mean, a team in South America, a team very far away that didn't understand maybe how working status. Me that came from Uruguay, I didn't study here, I was not raised here. I probably, when I moved here, didn't understand the market quite well either. That is true, right? But then how do you put that straight out into the conversation and say, like, how did you overcome these things, right? Or what did you learn? And what did be very direct to address them. So there you're talking about, yes, you know, I know that maybe being a Latina with a team in South America is different than having a team here, but like, look at the value that it has, right? And the proof is, I mean, Ulta Beauty ended up acquiring my company last year, and Ulta is huge on like diversity, it's huge on Latinas. They have a huge amount of their clients that are Latinas. They target the Latino population. So I found something that was special, and that I found a company that actually matched really well with my vision, my values, my team, right? Ulta is only based in the US, but now they have a presence outside of the US, which is Uruguay, which it's crazy to think about, right? And it was a huge decision for them to make. But again, like understanding like which are the things that actually make you different, make you special, and positioning them in a positive way. And if there is any friction, be aware of it, identify it, and then do something to reduce that friction.
Any more answers, Nadia?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I see like if I'm here and if I'm trying to build this company and I'm surrounded by these, you know, amazing people, whatever, from Bay Area, from anywhere around the world, I just think that I put the bar higher, so I want to reach like my best version, and I totally believe that I can do it. So I think this is good for me, think that I can push myself and really like compete like, you know, head to head with them. And another advantage that I see is that a lot of investors from Latin America, they see you with another eyes because you are here. So if you made your way to Silicon Valley and you are here, establishing your company here, you are doing something right. And even like to get the attention and also to get the investment from them, I would consider this as an opportunity because you're already differentiating yourself somehow. So take advantage of you know, this movement that you did, and start connecting with people that want to invest in Silicon Valley or in tech, because they are looking for, you know, the most innovative business, and sometimes they are not in Latin America because we lack a lot of resources, but a lot of the entrepreneurs come here to find those resources. So that's something that helped us. We in fact found some investors that were able to see that we were doing something like big, in terms that we were tackling a huge market, but we also had a very strong team, initially from Latin America. Now we are a diverse team, like mixing you know, Americas, US, and other ethnicities?
I know racing is very important, it's your first media especially, but I want to focus on what you were talking about, Ulta. You came here with your own company, you struggled, but you made it happen, and you had a kind of an ugly high. So what happened next? What happens when you have already having your success story, I would say, but much more to come. But how is the moment in which you decide you're selling your company or you're having an active hire? And what piece of advice you would give for the next step after raising that amount of money? Why did you feel it was the right moment to do that?
Yeah, so again, I have been 7 years with the company since I started right out of college, right? So I didn't have a lot of work experience actually, like a lot of it was just building Glam Street, right? And I think now for us, when our company was acquired, we were 12 people. Now, that was October. Now we are 26 people, and all of the hires, most of them were done in Uruguay, so we're growing the Uruguay team and building all the technology there. Now, as part of Ulta, we belong to the innovation team. So I lead the augmented reality innovation team, where we're looking actually to develop new things. I will be like the future of beauty, right? And which is really exciting for me because when I think about the impact that we are making, not only in such a big organization as Ulta, but also in a country as Uruguay, where the technology and innovation is generated in Latin America and is implemented in this huge American corporation. For me, that's exciting, you know. For me, that really excites me, and it's like, I think as a startup, you always have the dream of impacting like a lot of people, right? And
I'll be right back.
Your product out there for millions of people to use and generate change. And I think for us, being part of Ulta now, we are like making this happen, and not only from what we develop that really helps women to feel beautiful and find the right products that make them feel good with themselves, but also as a team, right? And also as a story of like proving that this is possible and that all of you that are, you know, now working on the startups, like this is real, like it happens, it can happen. Like I came from Latin America without knowing much, I raised money, I sold the company to an American company, and so I like that this also is a story of hope for everybody out there that is trying to do this, right? Now, in terms of your second question of the acquisition and why was it the right time, I feel that timing is something very important. I feel in a startup everything is about timing, right? If you're at the right time in the right place, like people usually say this, but I felt it like firsthand, right? In our case, what happened was like I started the company. We were doing first augmented reality, more like with a photo, not so like a Snapchat or Instagram like. Live, it was first with a photo. I was trying to convince the brands to use my product, and why was it important, and it was very proactive from our side, and to try to like push what we were building, right? Years passed by, and then augmented reality started being a thing, right? The Instagram filters, Snapchat, like all these things, and people started really adopting the fact of putting your face in the phone and putting things on top of it, right? So then, like in beauty, it's like it's a very something that helps a lot because you can see how the lipstick looks on your face when you're buying online. You can see how the eyeshadow looks on your face, right? So it was very important that the industry started changing and augmented reality became a thing, right? Another thing that happened was last year in March, L'Oreal acquired one of my competitors that was called Modiface. And this acquisition was huge. Why? Because it proved that, like, actually, if L'Oreal acquires an augmented reality company, then this is a thing, right? It's not like, oh, a little game and that's it, right? And this company was a much bigger company than ours. There were 80 people, right? And now the whole team works for L'Oreal. And that moved the market. That made the other brands, the other retailers say, like, hey, actually, this is something that is here to stay. So and that moment was when I realized that we were in a moment that I don't know how much time it was gonna be, like that kind of momentum, right? A lot of brands were calling us, they wanted to meet with us, they wanted the software to use in their websites, in their apps, and then a lot of things started happening that had never happened before. It was always proactive from my side, and that moment it was them reaching out to me, right? So that's when I realized also that it started looking like it was the right time for something like this to happen, where what we were doing was interesting, where what we had built and our technology at that time was mature enough, was being used by a lot of people, and we were growing the company, we had money in the bank, so we could, we had to make a decision of, do we want to raise a Series A, continue the path of raising more money and growing, or it was the time to think about an acquisition too, right? And so Ulta Beauty was part of my biggest client at the time. And so they came to us to say, hey, like, we're realizing this is a thing, like, what's your vision for it, right? So we started a conversation more on the partnership side of saying, like, okay, like, what can we build together? And then we just realized from both sides that it was like such a seamless relationship. Not only both of our teams, like their teams, their executives, and our team was so aligned. We were thinking on the same way, right? Which for me it was crazy because it was like me presenting the vision to the CEO and the CEO saying, wait a minute, that's exactly how I think about this. And it was like we were in love, both companies. And that made it possible because it was real and it was a real connection. And we shared the same vision for the future. So for me it was the time. For me it was the time because when you get acquired also usually you need to stay in the company for several years, you need to implement your vision, everything that we said had to happen, and it was something that I and my team were really excited about. So for us it was like a no-brainer in the end when numbers make sense, investors are happy, we are happy with what would happen in the future, I like the executives and I believe in their vision too. So it was like, okay, this is the right time. It felt like the perfect time.
You felt it was the right time to...
Yeah.
What do you think, the rest? When would you feel it's the right time to stop? Because we don't talk enough about that, but there should be a point in which you say, I'm selling my company, I'm stopping, Do you think about that? Or it's going to be always the cycle of raising?
No, I think about that a lot. So Caribou, I didn't get to tell you about Caribou. So Caribou, we help parents and grandparents read and draw with their kids or grandkids through an interactive video call. So if anyone has 0 to 7-year-olds in this room, nieces, nephews, kids, grandkids, and you've had a really terrible FaceTime call, you should use Caribou. And we have books in English, Spanish, 8 languages actually. You can download it today, free to download on iOS or Android. It's spelled in Spanish, which is actually really important, Caribou, C-A-R-I-B-U. And because we have this really cool interactive app, I'm always thinking about the exit, right? Because I know that I'm going to be a very attractive acquisition target in like 2 to 3 years. We're going to get so big and become such a household name that Facebook portal is going to be like, you know what, screw it, we just need you out of the market. Or you really cornered the grandma market. We call them glamas, glamorous grandmas. And in Espanol, fabuelas. Abuelas fabulosas. So someone's gonna want that group, someone's gonna want our technology, someone's gonna want our team. And this is the trick. This is the problem, as we all know. Once you take other people's money, you have to listen to them. And these are investors. Investors, their job is to make money off the money they gave you. And so once you take outside funding, you are starting to think about an exit. You're starting to think about an acquisition or an IPO. As you guys have seen this year, IPOs are not exactly going so well. And it's also for like 0.0001% of our companies. So what I would also suggest though is like, you shouldn't think about the acquisition as like, oh, I need to like start preparing myself to sell. No, you just build the best damn business. And people will come to you. Just like you know how in dating, everything in startups is dating. In dating, you're like, if I just like go and do my own thing and take care of myself and I'm happy with myself, like all of a sudden everyone's like hitting on you. That's how it is as a company. Like if you're just doing the best, if you're making money, if you're profitable, if people are just clamoring to buy your product, people will come to buy it.
Good. So we're already on the coffee break time, and I don't want anybody to. Coffee is important, you know, Miami.
Por favor.
So I would like to ask you to give not a piece of advice, but more kind of what would have to know before starting this, before getting to raise money and starting a company. Now that you've been into this for a time, what would you wish you had known before getting into this?
I wish I had known how intense it was going to be. I feel like I don't sleep that much to begin with. I sleep 4 hours a night. I have really crazy insomnia. I'm now going to bed at 6 in the morning instead of 3 in the morning, so it's like, and I don't see my friends. I don't see my family. My dog is literally an emotional support animal to me right now. Lunita la Juanita, sí. And I'm okay with it. I'm super happy. But I wish I had kind of been prepared for that. I didn't realize I was literally going to have to abandon everything outside of, like, I used to volunteer, I used to, like, have friends, you know, for brunch, and, like, that's all gone. Because also, I'm so obsessed with my company, I'm not fun to be around anymore. Like, no one wants to talk to me. All I do is talk about Caribou. And I don't think I realized, like, how all-consuming and how obsessed and passionate and, like, how you literally have to be on your business every minute of the day.
So Tanya,
I think I was always afraid of not being ready to fundraising. And so in the beginning when I got here at IndieBio, we were still like figuring out product market fit, and I was kind of avoiding investors because I was not sure where we were going. So I think like the advice I would give to myself is not be afraid, like to share, like what's your moment right now, like where you are, but what's your vision? Because maybe you can find the help to get there from those investors, and not be afraid of being, you know, criticized because you don't have all the answers. Sometimes we think that we need to know how it's your revenue model and how is you are going to do your exit and all, you know, everything, and you don't know that, and it's fine. So I think start talking with people, and sometimes they usually say that, right? Try to raise money and you get an advice, ask for advice, and you will get some money. So if you be more out there, like sharing your idea, your vision, your passion, you are probably, even if you are not like raising money, eventually you will find some people that will want to invest in your company because you are being so honest and sincere, and they will see that. So like before, like when you started like last year raising Series A, I was so like anxious, and it was a very hard time for me. Like I never went to this kind of, I don't know, stress in my life because I was afraid that we were not ready, and I was afraid that we would not be able to do it. And until I started talking to people, yes, maybe we were not ready, but I started learning so much and learned that we could reach those milestones, that it's not that I should be afraid that we were not able to do that. So, I mean, fighting your fear is the hardest part, but we need to do this all the time. So I just think that you need to prepare yourself and you know, like trust more in yourself and your team and your capabilities to execute, and yeah, and go for it.
Yeah, I think I really resonated with what you said too, and also what you said in terms of like the company is so all-consuming, and also how you have to move through the fear. Like there's always going to be something that you haven't encountered, but that doesn't give you permission to stop. And so I think it's really important to move through fear. I think for me, the most important thing is protecting my energy, because building a company is all about, it's not necessarily the time it takes, it's like really the energy it takes to build a company. So I know that I can be super productive if I'm really excited and motivated and like really pushing through something and meeting a deadline or servicing X amount of customers. And so I think that for me, I protect my energy at all costs, and like I think that means sometimes staying home and saying no to a social event. Sometimes that means picking your battles when it comes to facing microaggressions or something that's offensive, and like really protecting your energy is important because that's really all you have in order to be able to create this new reality. And before, we didn't get a chance to talk about our businesses too. I'll share a little bit about Snowball. It's a student debt app, so if anyone has student debt here, it gives you a free recommendation on what to do with your student debt, and so you guys should check it out.
In my case, I wish I had known to ask the right questions to the investors to make sure I choose investors that actually are good. And I think when you have investors, then they're in your cap table, they make decisions with you, and you carry them in your whole journey as an entrepreneur. And again, everybody tells you, choose the right investor, and sometimes you just need the money, and you're like, well, I don't care, I'm gonna take money from 20 people, right? Like, just give me a little bit of money. And then, I wish I had protected myself in certain ways legally when you are receiving money that is not smart money. Because then it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem for your next fundraising round. It becomes a problem on the acquisition. People asking for unreasonable things because they just don't know. So you need to educate them. So I feel like that's very important, and if you can't, choose your investors, because sometimes you need the money and you're like, okay, I'll take money from whoever gives me money, which the reality is it's not good, but sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs, included, I have done it, right? And so I just feel sometimes you don't have the option. So if that's your case, then protect yourself, because that's gonna cost you a lot of energy to your point. It's gonna drain you, right? So there's such a big difference between a good investor and a bad investor. The good investors for me were the reason why everything happened. If I hadn't had those 2-3 key investors, I don't think the company was gonna get acquired. I don't think the company had closed big deals with brands. It wouldn't have happened, right? But then the bad investors takes you a lot of that energy. So you need to be able to. If you can't choose and maybe something is they don't know much, at the beginning it seems oh, it's fine. But then when you get into more complicated situations, from raising more money again to getting your company acquired, these things surface up, right? So you need to make sure you are protected.
So thank you, and coffee time.